My name is Nitin Bajaj, and I'm the product manager for ArcGIS Indoors. I'm joining Jeff Archer and Craig McCabe on this team, and we are here to share some updates of our work on this really exciting product. So buildings and campuses are one of the largest expenses on our books, and we humans spend upwards of 80% of our time indoors. But yet, 50% of the industry keeps their floor plan data using pen and paper. And the others that are not using pen and paper are using tools such as Microsoft Visio, Excel, Word, things that aren't really meant for these purposes. But this has been true for several years now. So why do we care about it right now? Well, for one, in 7 short years, our workforce will be led by millennials. And in this age of real-time data and information everywhere, using these archaic methods of record keeping are a challenge for business sustainability. This problem and opportunity exists across industries and sectors. So we looked at a common thread that connects them all, the user personas. And we divided them or classified them into 3 different groups: the owners, operators, and occupants. As a business owner, I need insights into my business, assets, and people, and I need to ensure that my business is profitable, efficient, and safe. The operators, we think of them as knowledge workers, field workers, and map makers. So as a knowledge worker, I need to be able to define and derive these metrics and business information that I can relay back to my owner so they can make the appropriate decisions for the business. As a field worker, I need mobile data collection tools to update and maintain the facility. As an occupant, a visitor, an employee, a student, I need to get to my meetings and classes on time without getting lost. I need tools for collaborating and sharing with my peers. And I also need tools to contribute back to making my workplace better and more efficient. These personas are trying to achieve a common goal of understanding their built environment and increasing productivity and efficiency. And realizing these needs, investments in smart building technologies have consistently grown in the past decade. However, these disparate systems don't talk to each other, leaving these user personas in a flood of data points and systems, but no real insights or a system of record. ArcGIS Indoors is a complete indoor mapping system that allows you to assemble, manage, and share building and campus information. Before I hand it over to Craig, we just want to give you a quick high-level overview of the components that are included in the product. So we have the Indoors desktop, which is an add-in for ArcGIS Pro with several tools. We'll look at some of those this afternoon. And then we have the web and mobile apps that consume the data and the connections that we generate using the desktop tool. So Craig, take it over.
Thank you. So my name's Craig. My role on the Indoors team is the map maker, essentially. So how do you compile all this information? How do you make an indoor map? How do you style it? How do you share it, interact with it? So I'll go through the kind of steps of creating the foundational layers of an indoor map. And it starts with the ArcGIS Indoors information model. And this is a schema that is specific to indoor mapping and navigation. And there are several components to that. And this is actually a hierarchy that begins essentially at the globe level. And within each feature, we capture its place in that hierarchy. So a site has facilities. Facilities have levels or floors. Floors have units or spaces. Spaces have occupants, equipment, schedules, et cetera. So we're going to use the San Diego Convention Center here as our example. And we have our facility footprint polygon that contains information about ownership and your address, for example. You have levels. You may have multiple levels like we do here in San Diego. We have 3 floors here in the convention center. Detail lines, these show you where you have walls, doors, columns, maybe furnishings. Units. Units are defined by the walls that enclose them, the doors that allow you to enter them. And so we have here the area of the convention center next to the ballroom, 20, and all the meeting rooms to the left of it. Next, we have points of interest. And this is essentially anything you want to find inside a building. These could be places and things like this meeting room here. I don't know if anybody had trouble finding the mezzanine level on their first time at the convention center. Show of hands, anybody have trouble finding? So yeah, that's the problem we're trying to solve. So you're in an unfamiliar building. I have somewhere to go. I have to be there at a certain time. How do I get there in the most efficient way? Retail and services. Here we have some service phones. I don't know how useful those are. About the same as pay phones probably these days. But maybe AEDs are a little bit more important. So safety and security, first aid kits, things you really need to find, and maybe you have a couple minutes to find them to make a difference. Events. So every space may have an event. It has a time window where that event is happening. So right now, our time window is the Indoors presentation. So you want to find things that are happening at a given time in a point. So the Indoors information model is extensible. These are kind of some of the core features. But you have your own business data. Maybe you have equipment you need to find. Maybe you have employees you need to find. You can essentially add on to those points or people or places of interest that are important to your organization or your facility. And next, how do we locate or how do we route to a location? A transportation network, I think Jack has said the GIS is the nervous system of the planet. And the transportation network is really the nervous system of a building. It's how you get from place to place. It incorporates accessibility information, like say I want a stair route or an elevator route. I have accessibility restrictions on how I can get there. And next, a vector-based map. So in the past, we'd had, at very large scales, image-based maps become very large in size, hard to transport on a device, mobile. And so with vector-based maps now, we have vector data we can get down basically to kind of infinite scales, 1-to-1, essentially. And it's very small in size and easy to transport. And so once we have all this data, we also want to add some 3D information to it. So buildings are, stacked structures. They have floors, and you need to navigate through that stack to find what you're looking for. Basically pulling out a drawer from the building to find what you need. And so in the indoor data creation process, we want to add some basic Z information. So what's the relative floor height for the different floors of the convention center, for example? And this is important not only to support 3D applications, which this is from, but also to create our transportation network, which is actually a 3D network data set. So we were able to do that in a 10.0 release, actually 8 years ago, around this week. So where do floor plans come from? You come from GIS. You maybe have sketched in a floor plan or have imported data from another system, so we can bring that into the Indoors data model. They could come from, this is actually 2 items. They could come from IMDF, which is the Apple map format for Indoors that was released yesterday to the public. Another point is CAD drawings. So this is a common starting point for a lot of our users in that they have CAD, they want to create GIS data from that CAD. How do I do it? What's the data model? What's that process look like? They also have BIM models. So as you saw this week, we have Revit as a data source now with ArcGIS Pro 2.2. So how do we simplify all the information in a BIM? And BIM model's a little redundant. It's like ATM machine. But building information model has all this construction information for construction and planning, and we don't need a lot of that. We just need the basic floor plan. We have blueprints and white prints. Done a couple projects for City of LA, LA County, where this is exactly what they had. It's a little washed out, but it looks worse up there, and that's about the state of it. So we actually made a nice indoor 3D model of their floor plans using that as a kind of a sketching background. Maybe you have a cocktail napkin. In this case, you basically have nothing, right? So maybe you want to talk to some of our business partners and startups, and they'll go through and scan your venue and give you useful GIS data. So the ArcGIS Indoors Pro workflows. Essentially, this is the workflow for creating an indoor map. Number one, you deploy the indoor schema, the information model, the container to hold all your GIS data. You run your CAD. In this case, we'll use CAD as an example. Through the floor plans to indoors tool, you create and populate all of your GIS layers, your facility, your levels, your units. You configure the application, the map, and this may include connecting to external data sources, maybe employee database. You make app connections. So maybe we want to connect to Survey 123 so we can do a service request from where we're located inside a building. And so the Indoors app can communicate directly with Workforce, Survey 123, and other Esri apps. So you have that indoor location that gets associated with your request or your data collection. Search. So when we're connecting to other data sources, we need to know what is the attribute that we want to search against. An employee table may have a known as name, so we want to search for Skippy, and we want to type that in, and we want to configure that in the map so that we can search according to the attributes that are important for that data layer. We also may want to add custom icons. So we can add URLs to our icons for different data layers and map layers and customize the look of our indoor map in 2D or 3D. And so we've included some indoor map styles and POI icons, and we're continuing to kind of grow and add to this library in the Indoors product. So we have ready-to-use styles you can use and deploy for your facility or campus. Next, we want to create our network. And this is really one of the last things we want to do, because how do we know where we want to route to until we have all of our POIs integrated in our map? So once we do that, then we can locate people or places or things and create routes according to accessibility restrictions and understand the walk time to get to our location. And it may be a long way, like the convention center here. You could be walking 15 minutes to get across between sessions in some cases. And then finally, we want to share these maps and scenes out so that our application can use them via mobile map packages, web maps, web scenes for our 2D and 3D web application or our mobile map on iOS and Android. So let's go to ArcGIS Pro for a quick run through and demo. So this is what a lot of people are starting with, georeferenced CAD drawing. And this is building L on the Esri campus before they did a redesign of it. And so we have 3 floors. We have level 1, level 2, and level 3. And the first thing we want to do is create an Indoors database. And it's a pretty simple tool. You point it to an empty file geodatabase, or enterprise geodatabase, and it creates all the Indoors feature classes, the network schema that you need to populate to create your indoor map. The next tool is floor plans to Indoors. So this is really where most of the data is getting created in this process, and we're using CAD as an example here for the building L. And what drives it is this spreadsheet. And so the person who is basically managing your CAD inventory is going to fill this spreadsheet out. They're going to be familiar with the drawings, the CAD layer names, and we're going to be mapping those to Indoor GIS feature classes. So you can see here we have a pathway to our drawings. We have 1 drawing per floor. We're going to add some metadata about the facility, the level, the relative elevations of these floors. So we want to add that Z information so we can support both 2D and 3D applications and build our indoor network. We have building properties. So this might be the address, the description of the building. In this case, we're using the Building L Design Lab in Esri Redlands, the number of floors. And all this information is getting applied to all the feature classes because you want to know, at the unit, if you're clicking on a unit, you want to know what building that belongs to, what the address is of that building. So we have this full kind of parent-child relationship throughout the database. In the CAD layer to feature class mapping tab here, we have a mapping sheet that we want to put all of our CAD layer names and map them to our output GIS layers. So in this case, I have detail lines, and these are all the detail lines I want. You may omit things that aren't really relevant to your end user or your map user. And that would be things like a reflected ceiling or electrical information or other kind of facility management layers that a student or a visitor or an employee maybe doesn't need to see in the map. So you're extracting parts of your CAD and populating your geodatabase. And so one thing the spreadsheet does is sometimes you have polygons in your CAD files, sometimes you just have polylines, and you need to make spaces, you need to make polygons from them. And so this very last field here is an opening column, and essentially it's going to use the layers that you specify for your unit, and it will close that opening that's listed in the opening column to create a kind of nice clean polygon. So otherwise you get, with the door swings, you get little polygons of those swinging areas, and you want to incorporate those into the space in which they're present. So once you've populated the spreadsheet, you run the Floor Plans Indoors tool, you point it to that populated ArcGIS Indoors database, and it creates all the feature classes with all the metadata and attributes that you put in the spreadsheet. So, next step, we create our POIs. In this case, we're looking again at building L. This is what's come out of that Floor Plans Indoors tool. And using the range slider in Pro, which is a very handy tool. I don't know how many people have used the range slider here. Anybody? Got a couple? 2, 3, 4? So it's really, really useful with indoor data because you may have 10 or 12 layers in your floor plan, occupants and equipment and furniture, et cetera. And as you switch floors, you would have to apply a new definition query to each one of these layers to show them for the active floor on the map. In this case, with the range filter, range slider, we can apply them to a range. In this case, it's vertical order. It's an integer value that's associated with each floor that we put in the spreadsheet in the beginning. And now we can just go up and down with the arrow button, and we see our new floor plan as we go up and down the floors, and see our POIs and equipment and floor plan lines. So really handy. So in the network creation process, what we want to do, and this is an automated process that we came up with a few years ago, is apply a lattice to our indoor floor plan. And that lattice is rotated according to the building rotation, and it's cut by any wall lines or columns or other line types that you can't walk through. And it's kept open, or it is allowed to enter any rooms that have doorways. And so what this becomes is kind of a substrate onto which we can calculate routes between every possible location on that floor. So using the closest facility analysis and network analyst toolbox, we're taking each one of these POI points and calculating every possible route on the floor to every other point. And then we're moving around and doing that for every point. We're actually doing 50 points for each location. And what that gives you is this kind of a circuit board looking network. But the main benefit here is that we don't need to do this manually. So it's created a network data set for us. We don't see this kind of maze of network lines. All we see is the output path that the route service is going to give us. And so it saves a lot of time. I did our 800,000 square foot campus, 700 or 800,000, I think, in about a day and a half using the tools for our Esri Redlands campus, including the outdoor networks, all the transitions, stairs, elevators. So real time saver. About half the time was spent in the tool running and calculating these routes, and half of it was like connecting outdoor paths to indoor paths. So very helpful. So next, we want to publish our map. And so here we have all the floors stacked on top of each other, essentially, and the application is actually going to filter out the floor we want to see according to that vertical order, or that floor number. In the top part of the map, we have our POIs. These are the things we want to find in the map. In this case, we have people, events, safety and security, which is like exits and fire extinguishers. Retail and services includes vending machines, ATMs, and places and things, which is essentially just all the office locations, conference rooms, restrooms. On the bottom are the actual floor plan layers, so that's what we brought in from CAD. And in between is the campus network data set. So all this gets published out for the mobile app in a mobile map package that includes all the layers, includes the base map, it includes the network, and so you can operate fully disconnected on the device and locate yourself or people or places inside a building. That's pretty handy. So on the bottom, we have a set of standalone tables. This includes our employee information. And this is all fake names for the sample data we provided as part of this solution, this Indoors product. So you can go through this process yourself with our sample data and then use your own to kind of recreate the steps. So, people want to customize this. They have their own categories. They have their own POIs. You can update this table with your own values. So you can see we have some kind of out-of-the-box POI types. And at the top here, we can see there's search fields. So you may have different attributes you want to search for to find those POIs. For example, we have our known as name field here for our people points. So you publish that out. And it's powered by the mobile application. It downloads the latest mobile map package, and you're ready to go. So we've also been working on some styles, some icons that are going to go with the product. And these include some icons. So we have, our events, places and things, retail, safety icons, and you can use kind of any of these out of the box, or you can substitute your own. These are SVGs that come with the product.
That might seem like a minor thing unless you've ever had to create these.
So we're looking at, we've kind of transitioned from Esri Redlands, and now we're looking at the convention center. I put this together for our meeting here. And now let's kind of move over to 3D and take a look at maybe an example route here. So this morning, let me actually go to the mezzanine. We had a session in room 14A at 8:30, and we're going to have another one tomorrow morning at 8:30. So we got all the good morning sessions. But I wanted to calculate a route because I had some stuff to do after the session was out. And so I had to pick up a packet for reviewing maps in the map gallery for the judging responsibilities that I've got later today. And so I wanted to know, because I have to go back down to the Indoors island, what time do I have to get back, to get my packet and get back down to the island, and what does that route look like? So I calculated the route here just on the desktop. You can do this in the application as well. And it showed my route out from room 14. In this case, I'm going up the escalator here to the upper level, across the sales pavilion, over to room 21, where I got my little package. I'm judging the 3D category this year. And then my second stop, I go down the escalator here. The escalators are directional, so you can only go down the down and up the up. And over to the 3D island here, right next to the 3D GIS area. So pretty helpful, but how long is it going to take me? So if I select the route here, I click directions, and now I have, it's a 10-minute walk and about a half a mile. So you can see it takes a little bit to get anywhere in the convention center. And this is good information if you have a lot of places to go over the course of the day. So in many cases, like the walk time is more interesting or relevant than the actual route, because I could probably figure out how to get to room 21, and I can figure out how to get back down to the expo hall, but I don't really have a concept of how long it's going to actually take me to do it. So as you see here, there's some event callouts. And these are landmarks that are used by the routing service. Because indoors, we don't really have a good sense of what the cardinal direction is, or there's no labels or street signs for the hallways. I don't know when I need to turn. And so what we do for indoors is we use a curated subset of our indoor POIs and use those for landmarks. And these are things that as you're walking around the convention center, you recognize just by looking at them. So you do things like restrooms, water fountains, the indoors island at the EXO, obviously, we have to call that out. But these are things that will help you along your path to get where you're going. And obviously, you don't want to call out everything you're walking by. That gets a little noisy. But having, we kind of have 2 or 3, at least at the Esri campus, 2 or 3 landmarks per wing, so that as you're walking down, you get something every 10 or 20 seconds that tells you that you're on track. So that's a kind of a quick tour into data creation using ArcGIS Pro. And now I'm going to hand it over to Jeff, who's going to take over with our applications.
Thanks, Craig. Grab this. I'm kind of awash in cables up here. So I'm going to apologize ahead of time if I knock the microphone off my shirt and onto the floor and wake everybody up. So thanks for leading in. Yeah, so what I'm going to talk about just really quickly in this section is specifically the applications that we're including with ArcGIS Indoors. And there's a couple different places where these live. And let's take a look here. Specifically, we're going to talk about, the different client apps. One of the things that we strive for is to, take the information that you saw Nitin present at the beginning of this, the audiences that we're targeting, the workflows that those people need to do, how are they reviewed on a quarterly or annual basis? What are the important metrics for them? We want to be able to get applications either into their hands or into their constituents' hands that make their job easier. So, that means a few things for us. We're trying to create a unified user experience across all the different applications, whether they're running in a browser or on a mobile device. We want to have support across all devices. Obviously, if you are using an iOS, an iPhone, or an iPad, we'll have a native app that'll run on that. We also want to support Android. And basically, we also want to take advantage of all the things that are built into the ArcGIS platform. And specifically, ArcGIS Online Organizations or an enterprise implementation or portal that you can basically set up access control and use kind of those content management tools to control who sees what in the applications. Obviously, we want to have some data authoring tools. The stuff that Craig just went through will kind of get the first pass of the data, but maybe there's something that was in the CAD drawing that now is no longer accurate. It's about 15 feet down the hallway or something. We want people to be able to update that information and keep it current. We also, on mobile devices, have the advantage of sensors. There's things like accelerometers and cameras and all sorts of neat stuff on these phones now. Kind of feel old saying that, these phones now. Back in my day, I had a clamshell, and I was happy to have it. So, yeah, we can take advantage of that, right? And we can start to feed that sensor information into the system. So looking specifically at the mobile app, we've been working on an iOS app for some time. That's probably farthest along, definitely farthest along in maturity. We're also working on a native Android app. We can use those sensors. And one other kind of interesting aspect of this is we can use indoor positioning with mobile devices. And for those of you that are unfamiliar with this technology, if you've ever tried to use GPS inside of a building, it doesn't work, right? And, back in the day, it used to just kill your battery if you tried. It would try to connect to satellites, couldn't see them. That's gotten better. But you still can't access the satellites when you're inside of a building, which is a problem if you want that blue dot experience. So there's lots of people that are innovating in this space, using things like Wi-Fi fingerprinting. We work specifically with Apple and other vendors to kind of utilize some of the stuff that's out there in the space with ArcGIS Indoors. We don't want to reinvent the wheel. But we want to support everything that's kind of at the top of the list. That includes things like beacons. And, we've deployed those here at the UC to improve the blue dot in the application as we use it here in San Diego. There's also some partners that work with something that's pretty interesting from a technology perspective, smart lighting. Don't really have time to get into it too much here, but if you're interested in hearing more about that, stop by the booth. That's pretty fascinating and can give a really accurate indoor position. Pretty neat stuff. So this also uses mobile map packages. So all the work that Craig just went through, you have an option. You can publish those as map services. You can publish it as a scene service. You could also create a mobile map package and make that available on a mobile device. What that means is the network and all the data and everything is all wrapped up in a neat little package, and it's right there on the device. It works in a disconnected environment. And we also want to support those common workflows. So in the web app, we get the advantage of using 3D. We can access scenes that run in ArcGIS Online or in a portal. And we also have a responsive design, so no matter how you're accessing this browser-based application, it'll work. So if you're using it on a tablet, it'll kind of configure itself to that smaller form factor. We're also always connected to ArcGIS Online and Portal, so we get those content management, the authentication. You get to log in, and depending on who you are, you get to see a different map than maybe somebody who's not in your group. So you get all those kinds of things available to you. And we're looking at not only this kind of viewer that you see in the screenshot at the top and the one we'll take a look at here, But I also wanted to mention that we've been playing around with some of the other stuff that's part of the platform, specifically things like Ops Dashboard. So if you have a portal or ArcGIS Online implementation, you have access to all these great apps and that little tile button up in the upper right, right? We want to see, hey, do these things work? And the answer generally is yes. ArcGIS Indoor maps tend to just work in these applications, including the Ops Dashboard. So if you need to see that kind of instant view into the health of the indoor spaces of your organization, you can do that through a dashboard, and that's pretty cool. So right now I'm going to jump out. Hey, it didn't change it. Living Writer, it's taking mercy on me late in the day. So here is the browser-based application, and the map will look familiar. This is the map that Craig put together in Pro. The workflow would be that he would create the data, create these maps, publish them to ArcGIS Online organizations or to a portal, and then the web application is just written using the Esri JavaScript API. So we can take advantage of all the stuff that's in the API, build it into the app for you guys. So that means things, really basic stuff like the the base map switcher. I can switch to imagery. I can switch back to topo. We can also see things like we can turn layers on and off, right? So we can turn the details and the units off, and you can see those things come back on when I turn that layer on. Kind of basic functionality, but now we're starting to get into more interesting, indoor stuff. So I can change which floor that I use. So we don't have the range slider here in the web application, but we've engineered this floor picker, as we call it internally. So you can choose which floor you want to view in the application. And, obviously that's pretty handy to have for an indoor application. You want to be able to, in some cases, see one floor in one building and another floor in another building, and you'll be able to do that. So let's see here. So I can also, the icons and categories that Craig went through in the desktop, those just come through. I can access, say, the events here this week. I can look what's going on today. Let's see here. Let's just pick a good one. JavaScript introduction. That's not bad. So I can see where that is. I can see it on the map. I can see generally where that is in the hall. I can save this as a favorite. I could also set it as my home, so I'll go ahead and save that as a favorite. And then if something is going on there that I don't like, we have it hooked into Survey 123, so we can actually report that there's a problem in the room, say the bulb goes out in the projector. A pretty common thing to happen, right? We can report that through Survey 123 and have that logged as a work order, have somebody come out and get that fixed. So another thing we've implemented, let's do one more, and then we'll move on to the mobile app. So I wanted to kind of go through this idea of retail and services, right? So if I'm looking for a coffee shop, I want to go to Starbucks, and I can find that up in the front of the convention center there. And one of the reasons I wanted to show this is that we have this concept of your places. So I can set a home location, and I've set my home location this week as the ArcGIS Indoors booth. But we also see, and you can see all the favorites. These stars are things that I've clicked this save button here in the interface. And I can also go and visit those things if I want to. But we also keep a stack of all the places that you visited. So if you want to go back and go back to the ArcGIS API for Python, you can go there, and then you can create directions from your home location. And this route will look familiar again. And we have a lot of the stuff built in, so you can see the route highlights. I can also flip that route, and that's pretty much a quick view of the web application. So if you want to see more about this, definitely come and see us at the booth. We also have a kiosk version of this app. Hide my downloads there. But the kiosk version is designed to run on a tablet or a touch device. We've had a lot of customers ask us for this. It's like, hey, if I create this great map of my campus, I want visitors to the campus to be able to walk up to a kiosk and find what they're looking for and get a route. So this is what this is targeted for. It's basically the same experience, all the same functionality that I just went through in the regular browser app, only we changed the form factor just a little bit. So we've got these nice big buttons along the bottom that even fingers like mine can hit on a touch device. And you'll notice that the size of the buttons on the side is a little bigger too. So we have a version of this at the island as well. And last but not least, let me switch over, get my phone unlocked. get rid of all these notifications. It's a busy time of day when you have children. There's like all kinds of lessons and stuff going on, so you guys don't want to see all that. Maybe unplug it so far. Try switching back again. Sometimes it gets a little touchy. There we go. So this is the iOS version of the mobile app, and you can see that blue dot right there in the middle. Yay, this is much rejoicing. We get the blue dot inside the building, right? So this is the IPS technology that we're utilizing here in the application. We have, internally, we have what we refer to as a smart selector. So we don't really care how you get the blue dot. It's just, as long as you have a good map to put it on, and that's where, that's what our bread and butter is. So ArcGIS Indoors is going to provide you the map and a mechanism to take advantage of whatever IPS solution you want. We also work with partners, so we can help you out with that too if you want to. So you can see, again, the map looks familiar, right? Here we are in the mezzanine. I can tap on things and find information out about those things. So if I slide this up, then you can see some other actions that I have there too. I can share this as a point of interest with friends of mine, as a message or email. That way, if they have the application, this is what's called a deep link. So the link that I send them is not just the URL. If they access it on a device that has the ArcGIS Indoors app installed, when they click the link, it's going to open the app to that item. So this is a neat way to show people like, hey, I found an empty meeting room in this location, meet me here in 10 minutes. You can send an email with that link in it, and they can utilize that. So what else can we do? We got the same 311 functionality, right? So this is built in. Again, this is when I led into this, we want to provide that consistent user experience across all of our applications. And that is a view into that. I can add it as a favorite, right? So I'll make that a favorite. I can also get directions. And in this case, I'll do it from my location. So handy, it's right down the hall, right? So, but we can see that same network that Craig was busy, putting together on the desktop. This has now been not only published as a network service that I used in the web application, it's been wrapped up in the mobile map package that now exists on my phone. So even if I go into airplane mode, I can still use this application because the mobile map package exists on the device. That's kind of a neat thing. So we also have this floor picker, so I can switch to the third floor. I can see all the things that are going on there. If I get out of here, let me go back to my events. I can see all the different stuff that's going on this week, and I can find those things in the convention center. So again, a lot of the same functionality that we've seen, just running now native as an iOS app. And we also have an application that we're building for Android. In the interest of time, we're probably not going to get to that in this session, but definitely stop by the booth. We can have a look at it there for you. That one's still under construction. Frankly, it's like pre-alpha, so I'm a little nervous to plug it into the projector. But we do have it on several devices at the booth if you want to see that. So come on down and check it out.
And this is really washed out, too, compared to what you see on the device, so you'll come by the booth.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, trust me, it's pretty these screens that these things have now is completely mind-boggling. So back in my day, I had a candy, But you can also see here, just the last thing I want to point out, I am using a mobile map package and it'll work in a disconnected environment. But if I'm signed in here as a user that has access to a lot of different maps in my organization, I can switch maps on the fly. So, I happen to have pretty good access to this organization, gave myself, pretty good permissions. So if I want to go and see, say, an Esri map, and I forgot I just reinstalled it, so hopefully it doesn't take forever. It will take forever. It's moving okay, but it's not moving great. Just trust me on this. When the map package it finishes downloading, it's really easy to switch back and forth, and the app will actually keep track of the ones you have downloaded on your phone. So I cleared out the cache earlier when I did an update on my phone, but once you download these things, they're there for you to use. So with that, I'm going to kick it back to Nitin.
Thank you. All right. Thanks, Jeff. So bringing it back to what Craig and Jeff said, we looked at this architecture slide for the product. We want to talk Just a bit more about the indoor positioning. You heard we support several different systems, but this is really the pulse of the ArcGIS Indoors system, and I want to take about a minute or so to go through this. So like Jeff said, GPS requires a line of sight with the receivers, and that's why GPS is not a good solution for reliable indoor positioning. And there are a multitude of systems that provide you indoor positioning. There's beacons, light, Wi-Fi, geomagnetic, sound, and there's many others that are coming out. At version 1, we want to support the ones that we have listed up here, and the brands that you see are the ones we are building for. Now, this is kind of what you see today without any indoor positioning. As you can see, the position confidence level is pretty low. At this venue, we've partnered up with Apple to provide this indoor positioning, and what we are using is the Wi-Fi access points. Most of the facilities already have access points, so there is no additional investment needed. The downside is the accuracy is about 3 to 5 meters, which in a lot of use cases is good enough, right? For this kind of a place, you want to get to a room, you're in the vicinity, and you just lift up your head and you know where you want to go. But there are certain other applications, such as if you're in the retail business and you have associates that want to take the cart of returns that we did after the holidays, and they want to go stack up these 20 items. Our app will facilitate a multi-stop route, like Craig said. What is the most efficient way for my associate to go back and rack these items back in the shelves? So you need a better positioning than 3 to 5 meters, and there are other technologies that we are supporting that give you that kind of accuracy. So coming back to the Apple indoor positioning, their technology was announced back in 2014, and it has been updated ever since, down to the public launch that happened yesterday, like Craig said. And the good thing is there's no beacons needed, so no additional infrastructure costs. So this positioning relies on the device. There is dead reckoning within the devices. They're smart. And they use the Wi-Fi fingerprinting. So essentially, what you have to do is walk your facility or get one of our partners or our professional services teams to come down and do the survey for you. And it takes a couple of hours. If you're the authorized owner of that facility, you have to claim it and send it back to Apple, and you have to give them obviously proof that you own this facility so they can take the information and send it back to you with a blue dot. Now, for that to happen, the floor plans need to be converted into IMDF. And for that, you can use ArcGIS Indoors. Right? So we are approved and certified as the partner, if you will, to communicate this information back and forth from the IMDF system. So IMDF, by now, you guys know, it's the indoor mapping data format. It is the standard data model for indoor spaces based on GeoJSON. And that's the output, is a vector format and a set of GeoJSON files. So with the IMDF and the indoor survey of the Wi-Fi, you get the indoor blue dot. It's as simple as that. It takes a couple hours, like I said. So if I'll skip to the next slide here. If you want additional information, there it is. You can go to developer.apple.com/maps, and there is a whole bunch of documentation on that. So coming back to ArcGIS Indoors, at version 1, which is releasing before the end of the year, we want to support the Occupant. It's mainly an Occupant-driven release, but in addition to some tools for the map maker, right? And these are the workflows we want to support. I won't read all of them, but the ones I want to call out are asset tracking. You saw indoor wayfinding and routing. But then we also will do anonymous occupant tracking. So essentially showing you dots on a map, and you can look at them real time or on a historic basis, and then be able to do what you do with GIS, right? Do analysis and predict what you want to do based on the information that you see. After version 1, we're going to start supporting the rest of the user personas. And again, the key one here being the identified occupant tracking for safety and security purposes, emergency response for various applications, schools, universities, hospitals, and so on. So like we mentioned, there is a host of partners. We are building a whole new partner ecosystem around ArcGIS Indoors. And they're primarily helping us deliver the product, but also extend it. We're building a system. Not all the things that we are building may cater to all of your needs. So you may want to build something that's above and beyond, and we have partners that are capable of doing that. So with that, I want to open up for questions. Back there.
So I support the public assessment program.
Okay.
And I've been trying to do this for quite some time. It's great to see, but if I have multiple buildings that I want to put into one master package, would that slow down the performance, or should I just break down into multiple?
Craig, you want to take that?
Yeah, no. So the question was whether you can use multiple buildings in the map package. And no, we have 20-something buildings on our campus, all networked together, all published in the same map package. There's no problem there.
Sure, go ahead.
Visualize the location of your route from the map.
So what was that?
The location of your route.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
You wanted to show that?
Yeah, please.
Oh, sure.
I mean, we have an app for it,
You can
right?
take it.
Yeah.
Don't give us any more.
Yeah, go ahead while he's pulling up the map.
Right?
In a previous version, you supported the local government information model, and now you've moved to this new one. So I'm wondering and then that one was the feature service, or the feature classes were facility streets. So is this kind of meant to replace that? Is there redundancy there if you've already deployed that other one? What's the kind of best practice within that?
Yeah, so a lot of the campus, I don't know, I'm not getting...
You want to repeat the question, Craig?
Monitor. Yeah. So the question was about the local government information model, where a lot of the previous campus mapping, campus editing templates were. And so basically we were running out of capability with that data model to support the kind of understanding of the full hierarchy of where a facility lives within its site and within, the holdings of a company or corporate campus. There was a lot of other things as far as the Z information that we need, vertical order information, basically blocks of attributes that support different use cases for facility management or move management or scenario planning that we had to essentially create a new data model. And Apple was, I would say, a significant inspiration in that, being able to communicate back and forth, have a two-way conversation between the Indoors data model and the Apple data model, because the indoor positioning is such a crucial piece of indoor mapping. So I think we can talk a little bit in more detail, but the local government information model took us, as far as proving a concept, a certain distance, but we had to kind of start whole cloth to really achieve what we want to with the product.
Well, and part of it too, there was a lot of, I don't have a mic, but that data model is pretty huge, and we were only using like a tiny little corner of it.
Right.
So this is more now with an ArcGIS Indoors focused data model, we're able to kind of really fine tune exactly what it is that we need for an indoor space. We're not trying to, force that square peg into a round hole.
So, but if you are deploying it for other purposes, is there a best practice? So, in other words, you're setting up then, I guess, two geodatabases.
Right.
One with LGIM, this one. And is there a best practice within how they participate together, given that you may already have legacy stuff in the other one?
Yeah, that's a great question, and I'm going to repeat it for the sake of the recording, but it's The question is, if you already have data that's in a local government information model for a campus, and you want to use some of this new great stuff that we have in the ArcGIS information model, do you need to maintain 2 geodatabases? What does that story look like? I wish I had a quick answer for you. Unfortunately, I don't. I think it's going to depend on, what it is that you want to accomplish and when. I think that is probably fodder for a conversation to have in the showcase if you could stop by the booth. I'd like to talk to you about that a little bit more, because I know one of the things that we've been kind of toying around with is the idea of a migration. We've at least talked about it in meetings, and we know that it's kind of like something we should probably look into. So it would be interesting to hear what it is where you are today and where you want to be like a year from now, and we can learn from what it is that you want to do and try to incorporate that into what we're doing.
Great. Yeah, I'll swing by next.
Okay.
Go ahead.
You showed the mobile map packages, and if I understood correctly, you're downloading that whole package to the device.
Yes.
What if we maintain our data in an SD environment and we don't want to give away that whole unit of data that somebody's going to walk away with? What if we want them to only be able to access our maps for our data through our internal network on our sites?
Yeah, I can answer that by saying that we use mobile map packages exclusively because most people come to us and say, I want to be able to work in a disconnected environment. However, that's not the only option you have. The mobile SDK can work with live data sets. If you wanted to, be only use, services that you have password protected, that's definitely an option. Now, is that going to be in the out-of-the-box application that we release in the fall? I don't think so, but that's something that we could put in the roadmap.
The performance may be something they want to consider.
Yeah, definitely, and the performance is another thing. And there, but this is not a new discussion. Certainly ArcGIS Indoors isn't the first one to think, do we want to use live services? Do we want to use data on the device? So I think, we can almost have a conversation at the next level up as well. And, what is it that you guys want to accomplish and what are your main concerns? And, we may be able to come up with a solution that it uses ArcGIS Indoor data, but there might be other parts of the platform that, you can plug that data into that'll take care of what it is that you want to do.
Right. In my environment, we're a school district, so the map I might want to give the kids to navigate classroom to classroom might be different than I give the police or the security department.
Oh, absolutely.
Response. And who has control of that data? I don't necessarily want everybody walking out the door with their own copy of it.
Exactly, and that's completely understandable. That's why, using the ArcGIS platform and the content management portion of that, you can control who gets access to what and in what format. So that's certainly not an issue.
Yeah, so you showed the 3D route going from one place in a building to another. So as you're navigating along a route, does the map change what you're seeing from floor to floor, and how does it track you along that 3D route? Like, say for example, on a staircase, an elevator, how does that change as you're navigating along your route?
Well, I can answer that from the app side of things. The answer is yes. The app does automatically change the floor as you go from one floor to another. Okay. At least that's in the roadmap.
Except the app is 2D only right now, right? The mobile app.
Correct. Yeah. The mobile app would be 2D only, so it wouldn't be the same 3D experience that you might have, like we, want to solve the route in the web app.
So it'd be like seeing 2D. So it'd be like changing layers on a 2D map for now.
Yeah, it would, and we've actually worked with some tricks in the Symbology. So when you see the route, and say the route goes from the first floor to the third floor. As you move to the second floor, the first floor section of the route will become a dash line, and the second floor will go from a dash line to a solid line. And your blue dot ideally would be on the second floor, and the map would automatically configure itself to your location based on the blue dot location.
Right. And the directions engine outputs the route split by location, by floor, and by transition. So if you have multiple stops, it'll split it between each stop. If there's a transition between stops, stairs, elevators, escalators, it'll split that out as well. So you can symbolize each basically as you're traveling along the route. Yeah.
Do you have a way to deal with barriers and things like that, access controls, time of day sorts of things, with government facilities and other things? You can only go certain places based on your access control.
Yep.
Time of day, for instance.
Yeah, so you would essentially publish a map package for the intended user or audience, and that would contain the controls within the network data set that would allow you to route to certain locations or get information about certain locations. The network data set has, you can really customize it as far as you want to. So you can restrict by slope, you can restrict by well-lit paths, you can restrict by public or private areas. Right now we're doing path prioritization based on hallways versus offices or rooms, so that you're not walking through a conference room to get to your destination, for example. So we're working on a, for lack of a better term, attribute burner that will apply attributes from your space polygons, which may be access for security. It could be public, private. It could be based on the time of day or whatever, so that you can apply those attributes to the network after it's been built, and you can apply multiple layers of attributes to the network. So you can have your public, private, and you can have your visitor, and you can have your well-lit parts of your network if you're on a campus or something, or safe parts of the network to restrict or prefer pathways that travel along those areas.
Can the system be applied to electrical panels and you have shutouts, for example, by touching one lever here, which line is going to be turned off?
Oh yeah, like a service area?
Yes.
Yeah, so that's actually something we do. So the question was, can you kind of switch an electrical panel and light up or turn off or whatever's connected to that access point or that location? And yeah, so that's a service area analysis that you can run, and if you apply a long enough walk time or travel time, it'll go to all connected points of the network, essentially lighting them up. And so this is something we actually use to test network connectivity once we've built a network, to make sure that we don't have islands that are disconnected, especially when you're doing a network by hand, which is rife with potential user error and editing and snapping. And so yeah, you can essentially just extend along a network pathway and see what's connected to it, or turn off essentially.
And I'll just add that what he's saying is specific to the transportation network. My award for most asked questions so far at this user conference is, can I use the new utility network inside of a building? And I think your question is more like, if somebody turns off this switch or turns off a valve, which plumbing fixtures in this wing does that turn off? We haven't really, delved into that, but now I'm like super curious. So I'm like, I want to talk to the, the utility network team and see if we can come up with a test data set and like see if this works. I mean, on paper, there's really no reason it won't. I mean, all the stuff we use is just GIS stuff, right? Like our network data set is just a network data set. We're just using a geodatabase. I mean, it's floor aware, but I mean, at the end of the day, we're just doing GIS. It just happens to be inside a building. But that's something I would like to test.
And it would work with 3D, like.
Right.
In theory, yeah. I mean, if it's 3D is what's built into that network model, so there's no reason it wouldn't work in 3D inside a building.
Another thing, if you're looking at utility networks, you might consider for the traversable walking network, extending it to volumetrics so that you can really plan optimal evacuation plans.
Right.
You don't want everybody stampeding through a narrow doorway if they
Yep.
can walk 50 feet further and get out better.
Yeah, one thing that the network can't deal with right now is capacity. So yeah, that's something that we hear a lot of requests for, and yeah.
And even in general, like safety and security is one of the main things that people talk to us about, and I'm sure Nitin can expand on that. Any other questions? Thanks for staying.
Yeah, thanks everybody.
Appreciate it.